Even now, Mary contrived to remain centre stage. For 15 minutes after the last blow of the axe, the lips on her severed head, so witnesses reported, continued to move as if in silent prayer. And when the executioner, by now probably wanting to die himself, held up the head to the spectators, he made the mistake of grasping it by the mass of auburn curls. But that was a wig. To general horror, Mary's skull, the hair cropped into short grey stubble, fell from his grip and rolled along the floor. At that moment, a terrible howling came from the crimson, blood-soaked petticoat. Mary's lapdog had to be taken away from the wreckage of her mistress. They tried and tried to scrub it clean of the clotted blood. They did so, but it wouldn't eat. It languished. It died. It was just another martyr to Mary's pathetic, tragic life. Perhaps that little dog was the first mourner. It certainly was not going to be the last. Among the mourners, astoundingly, was Queen Elizabeth, in deep denial of what she had done.
When she heard, her countenance changed, her words faltered. And with excessive sorrow she was in a manner astonished, insomuch as she gave herself over to grief, putting herself into mourning weeds, and shedding abundance of tears.
Some of Elizabeth's anguish may have been genuine remorse. Some of it was downright fear. And she was right to worry. Even before Mary's execution, King Philip of Spain had accelerated his plans for the enterprise of England, and with Mary now dead, there would be no stopping him. Suddenly, Elizabethan England looked very small, very vulnerable. This was always Elizabeth's worst nightmare, a full-scale Catholic invasion, and now Philip was launching one. The Spanish admirals, however, were deeply pessimistic about the chances of success. They knew the English ships had a massive edge in speed and maneuverability. The miracle was not that England was saved, but that the Spanish came so close to pulling it off. Only a few miles of the Channel and an unhelpful wind direction made the difference. The weather, as usual, batted for England. But it was a close thing. The English were right to be scared in the summer and autumn of 1588. What do you do when you're weepy and terrified? Well, you cry out for mummy. And that, courtesy of Robert Dudley, dying of cancer now, but still the great impresario of Elizabeth's shows, is exactly how she appeared to the troops at the armed camp at Tilbury. The mother at last, the virgin mother of England, and the kind of mother you'd want on your side, a mother dressed in a breastplate of steel. Everything Elizabeth had ever learned came together at Tilbury. Charisma in a costume, the shell burst of oratory, and perhaps most important, what all mothers know instinctively, that there's no substitute for being there. And there, on August the 8th and 9th, she certainly was, arriving in a gilded coach, escorted by 2,000 ecstatic troops. And what she produced for the expectant crowds was pure gold. The first great speech by a queen recorded in history. This is where the real event of 1588 happened, not out on the high seas, but on the soapbox at Tilbury.
My loving people, I come among you not for my recreation and disport, but being resolved in the midst of the heat of the battle to live and die amongst you all, to lay down for God and my kingdom and for my people my honor and blood, even in the dust. I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and a king of England too, and think foul scorn that Spain or any prince of Europe should dare invade the borders of my realm, to which rather dishonor I myself will take up arms.
Oh, I know it's all spin and hype, but it was hype for England, and it did make a difference, just like Churchill's rhetoric made a difference in 1940. Almost instinctively, the Queen seemed to know what it was her people needed to hear. Look, she said, I may be a goddess, but I'm also flesh and blood, your flesh and blood. Whatever you go through, I'll go through it with you. And that made the difference between terror and determination. That is what we have queens for. You couldn't top that, and Elizabeth couldn't. The euphoria of 1588 was short-lived. In the closing years of the Tudor century, famine across the country triggered food riots. Cutthroats and beggars prowled the roads. The Irish, who were spoken of as savages, were driven into a 9-year war. And for the Queen herself, the distance between the mythology of Elizabeth's ageless body and the shriveled reality became more glaring. Thoughts inevitably began to turn to her succession. Everybody knew who that would be: James, son of Mary, Queen of Scots. So in the end, was it Mary, Queen of Scots, the mother, who had triumphed from the grave over her rival Elizabeth? Elizabeth had one comfort, though. James had been brought up a Protestant, forced to disown his own mother after her disgrace. But still, he was Mary's child, the fruit of her womb, not Elizabeth's. And when Elizabeth died in 1603, nearly a half a century after that day under the oak, as gently as an apple falling from a tree, someone said, and when her underthings were taken from her body, it was seen that they still fitted the contours of the Virgin, wasp-waisted, slim-hipped, long-limbed. It was a body which, according to some, had not fulfilled the purpose for which God had fashioned it. It was supposed to have joined itself to a husband, to have grown his seed, to have given him and the country posterity. She had done none of this. But no one in their right mind thought that she had failed her people. She had been different, that's all. When the ring which had united Elizabeth to her country was finally removed from her finger, it was carried 400 miles north to Scotland. Now it would symbolize a new marriage, this time between two nations. Elizabeth and Mary Stuart never met. It took James I to bring the two women together at last, closer in death than they had ever been in life. There had been an old, wonderful joke doing the rounds in the 1560s that all of their problems would be solved if only Mary and Elizabeth could marry each other. And in one sense, they had. Or at least together and at a terrible price and with so much pain, they had had a baby. It was a little thing with a big name: Magna Britannia, Great Britain.